Hello, everyone. I am James, the novelist, and this is the Lit James podcast where we discuss books and writers of African origin. For our episode today, we will be discussing a full book written by a 30-year-old Flora Nwapa in 1966. Joining me to discuss this very special book is someone who I admire. She is a scholar, she is a literary enthusiast, she is a film buff, she's a traveler, and most importantly, she's a beauty queen. Welcome, Antonia.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, that's great. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Yeah. So, to get it starting, when I reached out to you to say I wanted you on the podcast, and I wanted you to discuss. I wanted to discuss a book that you felt needed to be exposed.
Yeah.
Exposed. Why did you choose Efuru?
So I think that Efuru is chronically overlooked compared to her contemporaries at the time.
Yeah.
You know, like there were a lot of books written, set in that period and written in that period that you hear a lot. I mean, foremost being Things Fall Apart.
Yeah.
And I just really had never heard about Efuru until I saw the book. And even after that, I don't think that I know very many people who speak about it. So I did think that, perhaps, it is time that a lot more people read it.
Yeah, and it's good that you said that because for someone like me, I think I had a very enriching childhood filled with books. Didn't hear of Efuru until I was in university, and it definitely needs to be exposed and talked about more.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So when would you say this book first came into your life?
I think I must have been like 13. And it just happened to be lying around our house. And I don't know if I can say, I mean, to be fair, I also did grow up around a lot of books.
Yeah.
My mom read to me a lot. Like it's an ongoing law in my family, how much she read to me while she was pregnant and also when I was a child. And I think someone must have, but we didn't have a lot of African books at home growing up. So it was actually quite strange that Efuru happened to be there. I think that someone must have forgotten it in our house. And it just became one of the books that were lying around. So I must have been like 13. I think I was in just one. I'd come back from boarding school and I saw it. And so I read it. I'd never heard, like I said, heard of it before. Just never heard about it after.
So you read it at 13?
Yeah.
The podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you say in your own words is the plot of this?
How would I describe Efuru? I think, woman marries first husband, leaves, marries second husband, leaves again, and society panics. I think that is my summary. It's not by any mile a good summary of the book, but this is what really struck me about.
That's fair. I think mine would be sometime between the end of the Second World War and the Nigeria's independence. One very beautiful woman lived in a village in Igbo land.
Yeah.
She just lived her life.
Yeah.
That's it.
Society panic.
Yeah, society panic. Society panic. All right, good. So if you look at the opening pages of Efuru, there's a delicateness to how the sentences are written. But I want to read from this they saw each other.
That's your edition better than mine.
Oh, really? This is the British one.
And this, I imagine, is the Nigerian.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. This is the British edition. Yeah. So they saw each other fairly often, and after a fortnight's courting, she agreed to marry him. But the man had no money for the dowry. He had just a few pounds for the farm and could not part with it. When the woman saw that he was unable to pay anything, she told him not to bother about the dowry. They were going to proclaim themselves married, and that was that. I think that's a remarkable opening paragraph.
Yeah.
But there's a delicateness to it that I wonder whether she's writing honestly or she's trying to prove to Achebe, who was then the editor of the African Writers series, that, see, I can write, publish me.
I mean, obviously this is going to be speculation because I cannot tell in what thinking firm she was working with. But I don't know. I don't imagine that she knew. I mean, I guess you want to put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
But then did she know whether she would get published? Because how I'm thinking about this is that, she's writing very delicately because she's the first woman to be published, from the region at the time. But then it's like I don't think that she knew she was going to be published. So this is probably her just putting words on paper as came to her.
Yeah.
And then she happened to be published.
I think I agree with you. And I think she put her best foot forward, definitely. Yeah, she did. She did. So clearly you have read the book more than once.
Yeah.
This is the second time you are reading the book. And you read it when you were 13 at first.
Yeah.
And now you are almost 90 years old.
Indeed.
And you are reading the book again. Do you think it's a feminist novel? And clearly she's an independent woman who is respected by members of the society.
Yeah.
Although she's a laughingstock behind some people's backs.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you thought about it as a feminist novel and if that's something that you would like to take.
Yeah, I think so. I think that in more ways than one. And also considering when this book was written, I think that for the times, and this might also be quite a limited sort of understanding of the times as well, because at the moment, no other books are coming to mind, and whether or not they address feminist sort of issues, But I would say yes, like this is a woman who, although she lives in a patriarchal society, so she, grows up and sort of takes those on for herself with or without societal pressure.
Yeah.
She wants to get married, she gets married, she wants to have kids. And then even in her second marriage, she's doing all these things like trying to marry another wife for her husband, etc. But then, like obviously we're spoiling the book. In the end, she kind of, goes through all this stuff and just finds an alternative sort of ending for herself, which I want to think is quite strange for the times. Like it seems to me like she would have fallen apart at the end of her first marriage, fallen even more apart at the end of her second marriage, just done everything possible to just kind of be in that hamster wheel. But she doesn't. Like, she just finds fulfillment in other ways. She's very dogged about her business. Even when she gets married, both times, she's kind of like, her business is really in the fore. And I think that that's, like very feminist for all intents and purposes. This is someone who is very about her business. She's not just, like waiting around for her husband to come save her. And even when she's existing within this society, she's kind of still making her path, so to say. So, I mean, what's more feminist than that?
She's independent.
Yeah.
She makes her decisions irrespective of what people around her say.
Yeah.
She's fulfilled without motherhood or love marriage.
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a feminist novel as well. So let's move to the characters. There's Efuru centered around.
Yeah.
There's Adizwa, her first husband.
Yeah.
There is Nwashogene, Efuru's dad.
Yeah.
Ajanupu, I call her Gossip Bro. She's everywhere. She's everywhere. She knows what's happening. You birth the second husband. Ogia. Woman.
And the other gossip, because Ajanupu is a gossip. And but I don't find her gossiping malicious.
So when I first read the book, sometimes I come to read Efuru, I was in uni. One of my friends was rejected by a girl. And one of his friends, who wasn't my friend, said, no, leave her. She will end up like a fool. So I'm like, be a fool.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, we're a fool. Why should I? That was like popular girl in school or something. But they're all shocked because after this boy quotes Hemingway, Shakespeare, everything. I didn't know a fool. So I had to, in uni.
Yeah.
So when I read it, I didn't make much thought about it, Then I read it again for this podcast. And I think initially, the first time I read it, I thought, why is this woman getting in situations where she's not going to win,
Yeah.
I read it again and I'm thinking to myself, it's not like she's not going to win. it's that she's in control.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's in control of everything.
Very much in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though she's in control, we don't see that. We just see her being unfortunate in 2 marriages. I wonder if any of the characters changed for you when you read it, and if you think that she's actually in control, and if her being in control is due to the fact that she has a lot of money because she's really loaded, or it's just due to her femininity.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, for sure. Like, the character has changed for me as I have grown compared to when I read it at 13. Like, it was a storybook. I just went through it. So, okay, yeah, whatever. I don't think anything stayed with me, to be honest. Not the context of the book, not what it was about. No, I don't think I even thought about what the author was trying to do with the book. But I remember only thinking about Efuru when I read it the first time. And obviously, the book is the eponymous character, whatever. But then reading it again, I think I thought it'd be more about the other people in the book, like Gilbert, for example, who you almost sense is being portrayed as an exact sort of opposite to Adizwa. So he's being presented as a better option for Efuru. And then I read it and I'm like, this guy is like, first things first, who meets someone and just goes, I want to marry you, think about it and let me know. And then it's just like, this guy, he can't handle her complexity, so he's kind of like running away, not having difficult conversations, just leaves, has this other child, doesn't say anything for like 2 years. I mean, obviously all of this unravels, but like as we get introduced to Gilbert, he's immediately introduced to you as a better option. And you kind of almost go with that, but I had to like reel myself back in, like, this guy is not a better option. And I think also, I mean, I want to say that I remember wondering about Janpo, but I don't think I remember her from my first read. But I think thinking about her more critically as I read it was, you kind of want to just think of her as a gossip. Her gossip is useful, like it's kind of like social cohesion going on. She's telling you, like, it's moving things. She's the glue, exactly. Like she's talking to a girl. But then I feel like her character in the end was quite endearing to me. Yeah, but I think these 2 people, I think, kind of really stuck out for me, obviously, apart from Efuru.
Okay. All right, good. So I want to talk about our view of the female body, then and now.
Yeah.
At some point in the book, Efuru is circumcised.
Yeah.
And then she has to do this cleansing.
Yeah.
And she has to walk around the town square, market square.
Yeah.
Topless, basically.
Yeah.
So I need to read that. So it's it says, so on Queer Day, who dressed gorgeously. She plaited her lovely hair very well, tied velvet to her waist, and used aka stones for her neck. Her body was bare, showing her beautiful breasts. No dress was worn when a young woman went to the market after the period of feasting. Her body was exposed so that the people saw how well her mother or mother-in-law cared for her. A woman was not beautiful on that day. A woman who was not beautiful on that day would never be beautiful in her life. I love that last sentence. It's one of the very few sentences in the book. So this is 1950, 1955, whenever in Nigeria. You walk topless and nobody was in news. It's part of the culture. In recent times, people condemn women for wearing dresses called Ashewo dress. Some years ago, Sabi girl was almost persecuted for dressing skimpily and all of that. So I wonder what is it with us that we so want to punish women for having bodies, basically. When our custom was one that actually appreciated the female body.
Yeah, to be honest, this is something that I think about a lot. And if you follow me like on Twitter or any of my social media platforms, this is something that I speak about quite often. Women's autonomy, like their bodies and even like their sexual inclinations. And I think, I don't know, like this is also me just postulating, but I do think that there is a very heavy sort of link to colonialism, I think, on one hand, just kind of bringing about a very different way of thinking about women's bodies. And this FGM situation is quite unfortunately something that the culture of the book, which is Igbo, shares with my culture ethic as well. Because when you want to get married, you go through something called a fattening room, and then in the end, you get circumcised. So that's something that, I mean, not grew up in, obviously. Well, not obviously, but more so, thankfully, these are not things that my family sort of subscribe to, but these are things that I grew up being aware of, like women, like your body, like I think women are very, like very into themselves. Yeah. So like even growing up as a child, like I never really was brought up to think any way, like sexually about my body, like I grew up in a house of all women just walking around, like bodies were not strange to me. And then, so I think that's, there's colonialism on one hand. There's also like the hyper-religious nature of Nigeria, which,
True.
probably linked, to what extent is linked to colonialism, that's left for, anthropologists to get in there. But I think that there's been a bit of that flip where, initially bodies were seen as bodies, this is a body, but then now it's sort of like a sexual thing. And so immediately you see a body, immediately kind of sexualize it. And so where someone could walk naked before, now when they do that, it's kind of projected interpretations. Like a Christian tells you, don't do that. A Muslim tells you, well, don't do that. And then it just becomes a whole thing, which is also interesting because on the one hand, on the media, like we have, I don't want to use phrases like things shoved down on us because I hate when people say things like that. But like you have like sort of like a very sudden representation of bodies in this way on the media. But then on the other hand, you're also being chastised for doing those things. But then the other thing is also it's the way that society has seen body markings, like tattoos, like, like I've recently been thinking about in CBD quite a lot. And these are things that were common with maybe not parents, but grandparents, great-grandparents. But now I get a tattoo and it's seen as an act of rebellion. Like we grew up with our grandparents having markings on their bodies. So I guess, times change, we're adapting modernity, but then just taking sort of the most negative, so to say, abrasive parts of it. All very have big thoughts. Yeah. This is what I think about that.
Yes, that was expensive. Yeah. And I like how you also branched into, body markings and tattoos and all of that, because I mean, recently there's a Nigerian pastor that got some tattoo of John 3:16 and posted hiding him and saying that, it was biblical and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So religion, colonialism has sort of found a way to make us overly conscious of things that we probably didn't pay so much attention to.
Yeah.
Probably didn't sexualize ourselves when we walked bare naked.
Yeah.
And now everything is seen from those lenses.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good because you mentioned autonomy, but in terms of the body.
Yeah.
I want to talk about autonomy in terms of the individual and women generally.
Yeah.
So in this book, we see Efuru choosing who she wants to marry the first time against her father's wishes. Doesn't work out. She gives him time. He doesn't come back. She leaves. She goes back to her father's house. The guy comes. She marries. Everything goes smoothly. He messes up. She gives him time. She leaves him again.
Yeah.
No wahala. It is almost as if women had, or rather, the way Flora Nwapa paints it, it's like women really had autonomy. Clearly, I know that across many cultures, many years ago, yes, women were subjugated. But you almost want to feel like, what if someone had autonomy? She could do all these things.
Yeah.
So is it a case of us thinking that it was so bad for women, 100 years ago? Or are we just overly sensitive these days to how bad things must have been? Because this woman has autonomy.
Yeah.
She does everything she wants to do, and nobody, she's not ostracized. She's not secluded from society. Yes, people gossip behind her back, but she's revered still. She's respected.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm wondering now. Efuru, to an extent, does seem to have some form of autonomy, but I think you need to remember the fact that, like the book tells you that her father is a great man. So there's an indication there that she comes from a family that is quite renowned.
Okay.
And then she has money. How she's come by by the business acumen that she has, however way, we don't know. But her station in life is different. So I think that's the thing, right? In every society, previous, right now, and future to come, there's always going to be this really, like it's relative is my point, the extent to which a woman can express her autonomy is always going to be related to other things, her station in life, how much money she has, her family, etc. I'm a woman, like there's ways where I find myself, like angry and like, why is this happening? But then I can't compare myself to people who have not been fortunate enough to have the level of education that I have, the opportunities that I've had in life. So there's always going to be that difference. I mean, it was a patriarchal society then, or still is now.
Definitely.
But there's always going to be people negotiating based off of certain, like advantages and privileges that they have. And I think Efuru is someone who happens to have those things going for her.
Fair. So I want to talk about boundaries. And in the book, everybody is so into everybody's businesses. Somebody can tell the sex style that was used for I'm serious. Like, it's almost like there are no boundaries. There's no privacy. Efuru is going to take care of Adizua's mom while married to Gilbert. Ajinopu is is
goodness.
Sunny is exactly. She's telling people's. So this was then, and now I don't think things happen that communally anymore. So I wanted to know: are we better off with this modern private life? Or
I can't say. I don't know. I don't know that I can say, for a fact that we are better off or that way of life was better off. I think that both have the advantages and disadvantages, as I imagine with anything.
Yes.
But I think that also like the world is growing, so to say, opening up, so to say. Even as a child, I remember being a lot closer to my neighbors. Being a lot closer to the people on my streets. Like you could know people 3 doors down, 4 doors down. Now it's not the same by virtue of, I don't know, maybe it's the kind of houses. And I'm thinking about Nigeria now. Maybe it's the way that we're building houses. We're all fenced up. Maybe it's a security issue that we need to protect ourselves. So you kind of build all these fences up. I don't know. I can't say what the cause is. I don't know for a fact that it's, but I am someone who values my privacy quite a bit. So I imagine that I would be rather pissed if someone walked up to me on my way to the stream to tell me about, I would be annoyed. So I feel like if I found myself in that environment, I might keep a bit more to myself. But I don't know, maybe not. Because even now, like I find myself seeking community. And then obviously with this whole Japa wave things that we're having, I've moved away from Nigeria, but I find myself wanting to connect a lot. I'm lucky to have a close knit of friends to whom I tell a lot of things. So I imagine that those stories are getting retold and all of that stuff. So, things change, things stay the same. Why they change, I don't know. Whether or not they get better, I have absolutely no idea. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. So I wanted to move to like societal ills. Let me put it that way. At some point in the book, Ford tells Gilbert about how cheap things are in Onitsha. Gilbert says that most of the things in that place are not genuine, especially medicines and cosmetics. Ford says, oh yeah, it's true. One time she bought a tin powder. She got home, she opened it and it was starch that was inside. This was, like I said, post World War II, pre-independence Nigeria. In 2025, 2026, people go to clubs in Lagos and they buy expensive drinks and they're all fake. Sometimes you go to Computer Village, buy a phone, and you get back home and it's the food like this. I wonder how we were able to solve problems like this 70, 80 years after.
Yeah. I want to say that these kinds of things have quite a bit of a link to the economy of the country in question, Nigeria here. Like, I mean, obviously not to excuse anything, but I find that these kinds of ills are probably prevalent in communities or things are incredibly hard. People are going to explore all these loopholes to make money somehow. And if you want to solve that problem, I think we need to kind of really back in, go back to the foundation, create systems that work to deal with the people who are defaulting on that level. But then also provide alternatives for people to not have to, like no one, I don't imagine. I mean, there will be a handful of people who will do things like this for the sake of doing them. But I do think that if we have a society that rewards people for the hard work that they put in, then it is possible that maybe some of these things will not exist.
So, in the book, there is there's high mortality rates.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Someone gets pregnant 10 times.
Yeah.
And she loses 8 children.
Yeah.
She doesn't lose 8 pregnancies.
Yeah.
She did exactly. It's not like she had 8 miscarriages.
Yeah.
She has 10, she delivers 10 babies.
Yeah.
Over many years.
Yeah.
And then only 2 survive.
Right.
Same thing was established in things fall apart as well. There was a high mortality rate. Makes me very grateful for vaccines. And over the years, people have used books, fiction, self-help books to try to help people redirect their lives. I wonder if we should recommend we should vaccine skeptics.
Yeah.
For them to just see how bad things were before now.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, it is possible that it could work. Stories have a way of humanizing and bringing things very close to home. And it reminds me, this is a bit of a tangent, but it reminds me of my one of my most favorite quotes is by James Baldwin, where he goes, paraphrasing now, but he says something about you think your suffering is unprecedented in the world, and then you read, and then you find that there's people in those stories. And and so I think that's, like there's a lot of things that I've become empathetic towards from reading and not from direct experiences. So I do think that there is the possibility that if people read more, and because I do find, I know that there are a lot of anti-vaxxers everywhere in the world, global north, global south, whatever. But I do think that it's probably unlikely that you find someone who has been close to a situation like this who is a skeptic because they understand it directly. But I also do think that it's not everyone who is skeptic who is ignorant or just completely stubborn. I think that people have trauma from vaccines, especially, like with COVID, all of that. Whether or not these are directly linked, I don't know. I'm not, I won't speak extensively on that, but I think that it is possible to understand what people's fears and the people who are responsible for vaccinating us have a duty to, address people's fears and concerns.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, I agree. Yeah. In chapter 12 of this book, Nwosu is robbed.
Yes.
So Ogia's parents.
Yeah.
Ajapipo and Efuru are on their way to the house.
Yeah.
And then they encounter this villager who says the world is bad. There was no stealing. If you stole, you were sold into slave. You go to the god, the idol, point out the thief, but now these church goers, they split everything. They tell us that our gods have no power, so people continue to steal. It sort of glorifies the good behavior of pre-colonialism, So on one hand, when you read things fall apart, for instance, you see that we had, like, Umuofia, for instance, was like a municipal town. And there was law and order, to a very large extent. And if you did this, this happened to you. If you did that, this happened to you. But since we adopted the British common law, it's almost like stealing and corruption and criminality has increased, Fine. I would not subscribe to selling somebody into slavery. I would not adopt, getting an idol or whatever to put a curse on you.
Yeah.
But do you think that adopting like Western ways of tackling criminality has failed?
That is a very heavy question. I think that this is I think that this is something that we say a lot, even now, and I can hear my mates saying stuff like, back in the days. I think that this is something human beings like to do a lot.
Yeah.
Like, we think about our immediate past or generations past with a fondness, like in the good old days. Even me, I find myself saying this sometimes. Those days, man.
Yeah.
But then the thing is that, is those tactics weren't fair.
Yeah.
There were probably a lot more people who were being sold into slavery for, like, they didn't steal, but like, I don't know how these gods and idols, etc., were meeting out judgment, but I don't imagine that they were very fair. They probably were harsh, and those judicial processes were not very clear. So it was close. Communities were smaller. It meant that if someone stole, the time between when they stole and when the punishment was meted out was quite short, etc. And then now we have all these long processes. So again, it's a thing, like, we're expanding, I obviously, from my answer, I think you can tell that I favor a bit more. I just think that, it's better that someone who is innocent is not punished unduly than someone who actually does something goes scot-free. Obviously, there's a few crimes that I'm very passionate about that has this argument will flip on its head. But I think, hey, let's not sell someone into slavery. Stealing, let's not. It's a bit.
You're right. I mean, I think you're right about the point where we always think about the past with fondness, as though life was really better. Because growing up in Lagos, for instance, there was something called Operation Sweep. That Buba Marwa, who was the military administrator of Lagos, instituted. And then they were very, very good with, tackling criminals and thieves, But those were petty thieves. Those were armed robbers who came to your house to carry television, to carry a video recorder, to collect your gold and steal your money. The main criminality was happening in Buba Marwa's office, in the contract. I see what you mean, and I agree. I agree.
I'm glad.
Let's not say someone to slavery because they stole a piece of yam, Yeah. Okay. In chapter 12 again, there is a part where Ogia is coming back from the stream with a very big pot on her head. And Amede, that's Gilbert's mom, she gets the pot off her head and warns her to stop carrying something heavy. Otherwise, she will be shot and nobody will marry her. So when I saw that, I was like, come to think of it. There's been a lot of this kind of statements all through the book, and I didn't even notice it. Oh, you can't even swim, nobody will marry you. You could have tying your wrapper, nobody will marry you. That's ever said you can't carry a keg of water, nobody will marry you. Nobody has ever told me that. But it makes me wonder whether Flora Nwapa was pointing that out deliberately to let us see that women were from marriage, from childhood. Or whether she was just giving expressions to her characters.
Well, I hope she was doing both, because one, I know that it must have been very rampant at the time, because it is still rampant now. I remember, again, luckily, I happen to have quite liberal family members who do not stress me about marriage and have never really said those things to me. Outsiders would say them, aunties and uncles would say them when they came to my house, for example. I have very notorious reputation for not being able to cook, and now I can, but I don't argue it. I like to pester, but like, I would hear these things: you can't do anything, you can't cook, nobody's going to marry you. Like, very common. Even now, people say about other things, like about the way that I choose to live my life or whatever. Your mouth is too sharp, you're this is that, you're that, you're not, you're too stubborn. The list is endless. So I want to think that on one hand, she was reporting what was common in the times. And on the other hand, I hope also that she was kind of highlighting how horrible this is, that as a child, no one's telling you about what you can achieve. It's just like, no one's going to marry. Like, why does that matter so much? And I think also, just sorry to extend that a bit more, obviously Chimamanda Adichie does a lot about this, right? And then now it's even less about no one's going to marry you because you can't do this. Now it's like, oh, you do this too much. It's kind of like you need to bring it in. You can't drive because men are going to get scared. So like I feel like every cycle, there's something that someone's not going to marry you about. And this is ridiculous.
You know what's funny is that the person who gets the 3-bedroom flat and who buys the car and doesn't give a damn is likely going to be married before the one who who continues to stay in one bed and to punish herself because she doesn't want to not find someone to marry her.
I haven't done the numbers, but I don't know.
So the ending of Efuru is quite sudden and maybe even disappointing for those who thought, oh, after this woman has endured 2 marriages, she should eventually find love, stability, or some form of to be recompensed. But it doesn't happen. First of all, Ajanupu breaks Gilbert's leg. And then Efuru confides in Dr. Difu, who I secretly wish he eventually gets into an affair. That despite all of this, she's still fulfilled, especially in how, Flora Nwapa narrates her dream of, being with Mary and all of that. I feel like she's still fulfilled. How do you think we can get more young women to accept that this version of reality is not something to be afraid of? That if you don't get married, if you don't have a child, whatever, or if you don't find love in marriage, and if you don't have a child, you are still very fulfilled and enough.
I mean, I think the book does it, for one, by telling it as is. The book ends like that, and such is life. Nothing is really tied up neatly. So that's grand. I think, obviously, the more that there's representation in whether it's the media, traditional, whether it's books, whatever. And I think that that's happening a lot more recently. But then you can see that people also interpreting this as anti-family values, etc. It's funny because I was having a conversation with my friend today over the phone, and he's unmarried, and he was like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. I'm like, let's face it, not everyone is going to get married. Even those who want to, like it's a rather minuscule sort of like luck and everything coming together, which is fine. But then, I think, sorry, just to bring it back in, representation, really, people seeing that there's other ways of living and that is valid. And the thing is that it's not everyone who even wants these things, even from growing up. But somehow it's drummed into you so much so that there's no space for what you actually even want to kind of build or take roots. So I think the more that people see other people living their lives like that, hear of other people living their lives, then the easier they would find it to choose such lives as what they want for themselves. And, happiness is not ever going to look the same across board. Someone's going to be happy just living their life, traveling or whatever, and someone else is just really going to want that sort of traditional setup. And either way, it should be fine.
That's good. That's a very brilliant way to put it. So I want to move to books and film.
I have very strong opinions.
It's a specialty. So in 2022, we succeeded in making Wole Soyinka's play And the King's Horseman into a movie.
I haven't seen this.
You haven't seen it? Oh,
I haven't seen it.
Eleshin
I have. Oh, oh my God! It's because I don't understand Yoruba, so I did it. That's the. Oh, I feel I'm quite embarrassed. I have seen it, but I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what it was.
Yeah, and it was directed by the late B. Bandele. Who also directed Half of a Yellow Sun.
Indeed.
Yeah, and
Well, that's an adaptation for
Yeah. And I think Odunlade rather was brilliant in the first 2 minutes until the film collapsed.
I now need to watch it again so that I can.
I think it was brilliant in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Before people come for me. Efuru translates well on screen.
I mean, I think there is source material. So what anyone does with it, I think there might need to be a lot of like creative liberties taken.
Mhm.
I imagine as with most adaptations. I think there's a whole argument, so to say, going on the internet about Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
You know, people who are very pure to the book saying it shouldn't be so, etc. So I think that there's something that the director said in response to one of these that resonated a bit with me, that when you're adapting a book, you're only going to adapt the version of a book that you have read. And as many people as read a book will take as many different things from it as possible. So I think, to be honest, even a sentence can be a film. It really depends on what anyone wants to do with it.
Yeah. So should we make it into a film?
Who's we? Is it the French we? Someone, I mean, I feel like we have, yes, of course, if someone wants to make Efuru into a film, they should absolutely do that. But I think that we have so much, like literature out there, out of Nigeria, contemporary, older, like there's so much stuff that could be made into films. And I don't know what the licensing rights are, but someone needs to like get it going, I think.
And if we do, should the film be made in Igbo and then dubbed and translated into English? Or should it be made in English?
It should be. I think it would be true if it's made in Igbo. I don't think Efuru even is educated in the book.
No, she's not.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Gilbert is like
Gilbert is educated. So it should be made in Igbo. Like I say always that even when people watch films, this is a problem now, watch films that are made in other languages and watch them in the dubbed versions. I find this very annoying because even when you don't understand the language, I think that a lot of context or nuance could still come to you if you're watching it in the original language.
Yeah.
So I think if a book like Efuru is going to be made, it should be made in Igbo, absolutely. And just subtitle it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sorry? I don't know. Anyone can play her. That is such a political answer.
It's a decade.
I see what you mean. I see it. Actually, in fact, I do agree with you. And I wouldn't have thought about it. I was thinking about the newer people, actually. But I see what you mean. I think that she can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone call Tonto up.
All right. That note, we wrap up today's episode of the Lit James podcast, where we discussed Efuru, the first book published by a Black woman from sub-Saharan Africa. I hope you've learned one or two things. I hope it's been engaging and entertaining enough. And I hope you've all fallen in love with Antonia. And if you would like for us to discuss any books or any writers of African origin, please get in touch and we will make that happen. Thank you very much.